Hi guys, today for reading, we are going to read Hank the Cowdog, chapter 9 on page 85. It is called Me, Just a Worthless Coyote. We are going to go over some vocabulary words first before we start reading the chapter. Your first vocabulary word is celebrity. I think we all know what a celebrity is. It's somebody that's very well known. As an example, my favorite celebrity would be J.J. Watt. You guys know that. Okay, the next word is dignitary. That's an important person in a government or church. So the priest of a church would be a dignitary. Donald Trump would be a dignitary because he is our president. Okay, our next word is rhetorius. It is a mob or a crowd of people out of control. So during this pandemic of the coronavirus, a lot of people, there was a huge rhetorius, which was a huge mob of people that were waiting for supplies. Our next word is savage. That means wild, not civilized. So, for instance, in Hank the Cowdog, the coyotes are very savage. Our next word is ambition. Ambition means desire to succeed. So I want you guys to have an ambition during e-learning because I want you guys to succeed during this. Our next word is traitor. Traitor means turning against something or someone that you've been a part of. So Hank the Cowdog, he was somewhat of a traitor because he turned against the ranch, everything that he grew up with and that he knew. Our next word is self-righteous. That means thinking you're better than everyone else. That's not a very good trait to have. In our book, I think Hank was a little bit self-righteous. I think he felt like he was better than everybody else, and that's why he left the ranch. Our next word is ingratitude. That means not being grateful, okay? Sometimes you can find yourself having an ingratitude that you're not very grateful of things, but I think we'll find ourselves during this pandemic, we become a lot more grateful than we were before. Our next word is superstitious. That means belief based on a fear of the unknown. Being afraid, almost worshiping something that you don't know much about. So a lot of us are superstitious about a lot of different things. Sometimes people say that if you walk under a ladder, you might have bad luck, or if a black cat crosses your path, that might be bad luck. That's kind of being superstitious, okay? So we are going to read chapter 9. I want you guys to open your books. Turn to page 85. It says, that business about the secret was the perfect stroke, and it probably saved my life. In desperation, I had leapt into it. Turns out that coyotes are superstitious animals. There's one of our vocabulary words. Even though they're known to be cunning and vigilant. I don't know how to spell that word. Spelling is a pain in the neck. I do my best with it, but I figure if a guy has tremendous gifts as a writer, his audience will forgive a few slip-ups in the spelling department. I mean, it doesn't take any brains to open a dictionary and look up a word. Anybody can do that. The real test of a writer comes in the creative process. I try to attend to the big picture, don't you? See, and let the spelling take care of itself. Vigilant, vigilant, still doesn't look right. Anyway, coyotes are superstitious brutes. And that deal about the secret caught them just right and saved my hide. Actually, it did better than that. It made me a kind of celebrity in the tribe. There's another vocabulary word, someone that's very well known. And I was treated like a visiting dictionary, dignitary, who cares? There's another one of our words, dignitary, which is an important person. By everyone but Scraunch, that is. And he continued to give me hateful glances and mutter under his breath every time our paths crossed. I couldn't blame him for being sore. I had won and he had lost. And you can't expect everyone to be a good loser. As we say in the security business, show me a good loser and I'll show you a loser. Scraunch had lost a big one, and I was confident that he would hate my guts forevermore, even though there was a good chance that I would eventually become his brother-in-law. You know, when Missy had first mentioned that possibility, it hadn't struck me as a real good idea. I suppose at that time I was still thinking of going back home, back to Drover and Pete. The chickens, the sewer, the cowboys, my old job. But a couple days in the Coyote Village pretty muchly convinced me that I had found my true place in the world as a savage. There's another vocabulary word, that he was a wild dog. The life of a savage ain't too bad. I admit that I was raised with a natural prejudice, bias against coyotes. Ma always told us that they were lazy, sneaky, undisciplined, and didn't have any ambition. There's another vocabulary word that means that they didn't have a desire to succeed. But what chapped most about coyotes was that they ate rotten meat and it made them smell bad. True, every word of it. But what she didn't tell us was that laziness and rigorous living can be lots of fun. There's rigorous. That word means a mob, a crowd of people. I don't blame her for not telling us that. I mean, she was trying to raise a litter of registered papered blue ribbon top of the line cow dogs, and there's no better way to mess up a good cow dog than to let him discover that goofing off beats the heck out of hard work. I discovered it by accident. And once I had a taste of indolence, I loved it. I mean, all at once, I had no responsibilities, no cares, no worries. When I woke up in the morning, I didn't have to wonder if my ranch had made it through another night, or if I would get yelled at again for something I hadn't done. About a week after I joined the tribe, I made friends with two brothers named Rip and Snort. They were that you'd call typical good old boy coyotes. Filthy, smelled awful, not real smart, loved to fight and have a good time, and had no more ambition than a couple of fence posts. If Rip and Snort took a shine to you, you had two of the best friends in the world. If they didn't happen to like your looks or your attitude, you were in a world of trouble. I got along with them. One evening, along toward sunset, they came around and asked if I wanted to go carousing. I was feeling refreshed since I'd slept a good part of the day, got up around noon, and ate a piece of rabbit that Missy had caught. Then went back to bed. I was all rested up and said, sure, I'd love to go carousing. So off we went, me and Rip and Snort, on a big adventure. We went down the canyon, crossed that big sandy draw that cuts through there, then on across some rolling country until we came to an old silage pit. I'd been by it many times, but I'd never taken the time to go into the pit and check things out. By the time I took over the ranch, the cowboys had quit feeding silage, so I didn't know much about it. One of the things I didn't know about silage was that it's fermented, which means that it's got some aldehyde in it, which means that if a guy eats enough of it, his attitude about the world would begin to change. All those years I'd spent on the ranch, and I never knew any of that. But Rip and Snort knew all about silage. Yes, they did, and they had made a well-packed trail out of pit. So we started eating silage. Struck me as kind of bitter at first, but the more I ate, the less I noticed the bitterness. By George, after about an hour of that, I thought it was sweet as honey. Well, we ate, we laughed, and we ate, and when it came time to leave, Rip and Snort had to drag me out of there. Fellers, 'cause I just couldn't get enough of that fine stuff. A big moon was out, and we went single file down a cow path, Snort in the lead, me in the middle, and Rip on the caboose. Funny thing, that cow path kept wiggling around, and I had a devil of a time trying to stay on it. I asked Rip about it, and he said he was having the same trouble. Dern path kept jumping from side to side. I suspect the silage had something to do with it, is what I suspect. Well, next thing I knew, Snort topped a rise and came to a sudden halt, which caused a little pile-up, with me running into Snort and Rip running into me because couldn't any of us see real well at that point. Stop here, said Snort. Sing Minnie's song. Sing pretty, sing loud, teach Hunk. Coyote song. So here's the coyotes. They're all stopped and they're singing the coyote song for Hank. So we all sat down on our haunches, throwed back our heads, and started singing. Let's see if I can remember how that song went. Me just a worthless coyote, me howling at the moon. Me like to sing and holler, me crazy as a loon. Me not one job of duties, nor church no Sunday school. Me just a worthless coyote. And I don't remember the last part, only it rhymed with school. Pool or drool, something like that. It was a crackerjack of a song. We ripped through a couple of times until I had her down. Then we divided up. Snort took the bass, Rip carried the melody, and I got up on the high tenor. Bass. Don't know if as I ever heard better singing. It was one of them priceless moments in life when three very gifted guys come together and bend their talents and sort of raise the cultural standards of the whole dang world. I mean, it was that good. We sang it 4 or 5 times, then all at once Snort's ears perked up as he lifted his paw. We stopped and listened. Off in the distance, we heard yapping. There was something familiar about that yap, but for a minute I couldn't place it. Then it occurred to me that we were sitting on a spot just a quarter mile north of ranch headquarters. That yapping was coming from Drover. I think Rip and Snort had took a notion to amble on down there and see if they could get into a fight. I had to explain that they couldn't run fast enough to get Drover into a fight, that it would be a waste of their time. Let me go down and talk to him, I said. He's an old buddy of mine. We used to work together. Maybe he'll come back and sing with us. We could use another guy on baritone. They shrugged. Snort sat down and started scratching his ear. More fun, right? Fight, but singing okay too. We wait. So I trotted down to the ranch, weaving a little bit from side to side and humming, Me just a worthless coyote. Say, that was a good song. When I was 25 yards away, I slowed to a walk. I could see Drover up ahead of me. He was peering off in the distance. The little dope hadn't even seen me. I decided to stop and watch him for a minute. He was all bunched up in tents. Off in the distance, he could hear Rip and Snort laughing and belching and having a good time. He'd cock his head and listen for a minute. Then he'd give out a yip, yip, yip. On every yip, all 4 feet went off the ground. Then he'd stop and listen again. He never saw me, never had the slightest notion that I was sitting 10 yards away from him watching the whole show. This was my replacement, understand? The guy who had taken over my job as head of ranch security. I didn't need anyone to tell me that the ranch had gone completely and absolutely to pot. I cleared my throat. Drover froze. What was that? Who's there? What's going on, son? He gave out his usual squeak, and in a flash he was highballing it for the machine shed, squalling like a turpinant cat. He'd gone maybe 10-12 yards when he slowed to a walk, then stopped. Hank, is that you? Uh-huh. It is? Uh-huh. How can I be sure? I thought you'd left the country. Well, why don't you just trot down your little self over here and see? He came real slow, a few steps at a time. It sure sounds like you. Son of a gun. You're not fooling me, are you, Hank? Get over here and quit messing around. Okay. I want to be sure, that's all. He came creeping up to me. Hank? Boo! He screamed and jumped straight up into the air. Hank, stop that. Don't do that to me. My nerves. Drover, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. What a pitiful excuse you are for a night watchman. I could have carried off half the chicken house and you never would have gotten the news. He hung his head. I know it. I'm a failure. Every morning I wake up and say, here's another day for you to mess up, Drover. And I do. Every one of them. It hasn't been the same since you left, Hank. I knew it wouldn't. I tried to tell them, but they wouldn't listen. I mean, you can't treat a good dog like a dog and accept to keep him. Gosh, I wish you'd come back. I laughed. You can forget that, son, 'cause it'll never happen. I found a better life. He looked me over real careful. What's come over you, Hank? You look different. You smell different. You stink. I've joined the coyote tribe. I heard and gasped, no. That's right. And if you had a brain in your head, you'd come along and join up with them too. It ain't a bad life, let me tell ya. He took a couple of steps back. I can't believe it. What would your mother say? She'd say I was a turncoat and a traitor. So what? I tried the straight life. I did my job. And what did I get? Abuse. Ingratitude. No thanks. Life's too short for that. I'll cast my lot with the outlaws of the world. 3 weeks ago, he said in a quivery voice, you were on the side of the law and order, trying to catch the murderers. Now you're one of them. That's right. He started crying. Oh, Hank, I can't take this. I used to admire you so much. You were my hero. I thought you were the greatest dog in the world. Since I was a pup, I just wanted to be like you, brave and strong and fearless. Knock it off, Drover. I don't want to hear that stuff. And dedicated to duty. I knew I could never be as good as you, but I wanted to try. You were my idol, Hank. Cut it out, would you? Come back home, Hanky. I need you. The ranch needs you. We all need you. That kind of struck me in the heart, hearing Drover say those things. Then Rip and Snort called for me. Hunk, come sing. We tired, wait. Who's that? Drover whispered. Oh, some of my pals. Come on up the hill with me, Drover, and I'll show you a good time. Introduce you to my friends. Are they drunk like you? There was a little edge in his voice. He'd never talked to me like that before. Well, maybe they are, and maybe they ain't. Who cares? I care. I don't associate with coyote trash. Well, la-ti-da. Aren't we high and mighty tonight? Drover dried his eyes with the back of his paw. I better get on back to the ranch. I'm on guard tonight. I laughed in his face. You're on guard? Son, you're a sorry excuse for a guard dog running for the machine shed every time you hear a sound. I'm not going to run anymore, Hank. Somebody's got to protect the ranch. We can't depend on you anymore. You'll run. You always have, you always will. I ain't going to run. Sure you will, and I can prove it. Boo! He didn't run. That don't prove a thing. When the time comes, when the chips are down, you'll run and hide. He looked me in the eye. No, I won't. And Hank, if you come with them, I won't run away from you either. He turned and started walking away. You always were a little chump. He stopped. I may be a chump, Hank, but I'm not a traitor. Goodbye. Go on, you little dummy. Who needs you anyway? Sawed-off, stub-tailed, self-righteous little pipsqueak. Drover went his way and I went mine. On my way up the hill, I could hear the boys singing, Me, just a worthless coyote, again. I took my place between Rip and Snort and started belting out the high tenor. We went on like that all night long, singing and laughing and chasing mice. But it wasn't quite as much fun this time. Okay, so we are going to stop there. I would like for you guys to complete the comprehension questions I'm going to send you. Don't worry about where it says quiz. Cross it out and just write questions. At the bottom, what you guys are going to do is you're going to write a paragraph, at least 5 sentences. And it says that we know that Hank made a bad choice, but I want you to tell me why he made a bad choice. I want you to find different reasons in this chapter that joining the Coyotes was wrong. Why do you think they are bad choices? And what lessons can you learn from this chapter? Okay, so I want you to look at the part where it says, where Drover said, "You were my hero. I thought you were the greatest dog in the world. Since I was a pup, I just wanted to be like you, brave and strong and fearless and dedicated to duty. I knew I could never be as good as you, but I wanted to try. You were my idol, Hank." Okay, so after that part, I want you to look for that in the chapter. And I want you guys to write a paragraph after you complete your questions about why do you think it was a bad choice that Hank made. So don't forget to use your book. You can list different reasons that you find in the book, or if you want to come up with your own reasons, that's fine. Okay. If you guys have any questions or concerns, please feel free to email me. Thanks.